The mining station Kepler 442b hung like a metallic spider in the void, its mechanical legs anchored deep into the asteroid's iron-rich core. Commander Sarah Chen watched the extraction readings flicker across her console, each number representing another day her crew could survive in this forgotten corner of space. The war had been over for 3 years, but out here, among the debris fields and scattered settlements, peace felt like a luxury they couldn't afford. "Contact on long-range sensors," announced Lieutenant Torres from the communications station. His voice carried that particular tension that made everyone on the bridge freeze. Multiple signatures moving fast. Chen's blood chilled. There was only one species that moved with that kind of coordinated precision through space. The Cathara. Even the word made hardened soldiers whisper prayers to whatever gods they still believed in. The Cathara had been humanity's most feared enemy during the stellar war, not because they were the strongest or most advanced, but because they simply never stopped, never retreated, never showed mercy. Their obsidian black ships would pursue targets across entire star systems, through asteroid fields, past the event horizons of black holes if necessary. They were relentless in a way that transcended mere military doctrine. It was their nature, carved into their very DNA by millions of years of evolution on a world where only the most persistent predators survived. "How many?" Chen asked, though she dreaded the answer. 12 ships, ma'am. Cathara pursuit-class destroyers." Torres swallowed hard. "They're broadcasting hunting frequencies." The bridge fell silent except for the steady hum of life support systems. Everyone knew what hunting frequencies meant. The Cathara had locked onto a target and would chase it until either they caught it or their ships fell apart from exhaustion. Since Cathara ships were built to last centuries, it was usually the former. Chen stared at the tactical display, watching those 12 red dots crawl steadily toward their position. The mining station couldn't run. Even if they abandoned the asteroid, their cargo haulers were too slow and clumsy to outmaneuver Cathara destroyers. They were trapped, and everyone on the bridge knew it. "Ma'am," whispered Ensign Park from the sensor station, "they're not targeting us." Chen looked up sharply. "What?" "The hunting frequencies aren't locked on the station. They're tracking something else. Something moving parallel to our position about 2 million kilometers out." Park's hands danced over his controls, refining the sensor sweep. "There. Got it. Single ship human design Corvette class. She's running hard, but those destroyers are gaining." Through the main view screen, Chen could see the distant flashes of engine fire as the lone human ship pushed its drives to the breaking point. Behind it, like a pack of mechanical wolves, the Cathara destroyers maintained their perfect formation, closing the gap with methodical patience. Should we help them?" asked Torres. Chen considered their options. The mining station had defensive weapons, but nothing that could seriously threaten a Cathara destroyer. They had mining charges that could be rigged as makeshift torpedoes, but against 12 ships it would be suicide. The smart play was to stay quiet, let the Cathara finish their hunt, and hope they moved on without noticing the station. But as she watched that lone ship fighting for its life, something stirred in Chen's chest. During the war, she'd seen too many good people die because someone else had decided that helping wasn't worth the risk. She'd made that calculation herself more times than she cared to remember, and each time, a little piece of her humanity had died with the people she'd left behind. "Torres, open a channel to that ship," she ordered. "Ma'am, if we break communication silence, the Cathara will open the channel." The static-filled voice that answered was young, probably no older than 25. "This is Captain Alex Morrison of the independent trader Wandering Star. I'm running a cargo of medical supplies to the Proxima colonies. These Cathara bastards have been chasing me for 6 days straight. My engines are about to blow and I've got nowhere to run." Chen closed her eyes for a moment, thinking of her daughter back on Earth, probably sitting in some university classroom, safe and warm and completely unaware that her mother was about to make a decision that might get everyone on this station killed. "Captain Morrison, this is mining station Kepler 442b. We see your situation. Change course to bearing 27 Mark IV and dock at our emergency bay. We'll try to buy you some time." "Ma'am," Torres started, but Chen cut him off with a look. "Morrison, do you copy?" The young captain's voice cracked with relief and disbelief. "I copy Kepler 442b, changing course now. But ma'am, those Cathara won't stop just because I dock with you. They'll come for your station too. Chen smiled grimly as she watched the corvette's engine signature shift toward their position. The Kythera destroyers immediately adjusted their course as well, their hunting formation tightening like a noose. Let us worry about the Kythera, son. You just get those medical supplies where they need to go. As the wandering star limped toward the station's docking bay, Chen turned to her crew. 43 men and women who had signed up to mine asteroids, not fight ancient enemies. They were looking at her with expressions ranging from fear to determination, waiting for her to explain how they were going to survive the next few hours. All hands. This is the commander, she announced over the ship-wide comm. In approximately 30 minutes, 12 Kythera destroyers are going to arrive at this station. They're going to demand we surrender Captain Morrison and his ship. We're going to politely decline their request. She paused, watching her crew's faces. None of them ran. None of them asked to be transferred to an escape pod. They just waited for their orders. I won't lie to you. This is going to be the fight of our lives. The Kythera don't negotiate. They don't show mercy and they don't give up. But here's what they don't understand about us humans. Chen's voice hardened with resolve. Neither do we. The Kythera destroyers were now close enough that their distinctive wedge-shaped silhouettes were visible against the star field. 12 ships designed for one purpose: to hunt, catch, and destroy whatever they were chasing. They moved with the mechanical precision of a species that had spent millennia perfecting the art of pursuit. But as Chen watched them approach, she found herself thinking about something her grandfather had told her when she was small. He'd been a soldier in one of Earth's last conventional wars, and he'd said that the most dangerous enemy wasn't the one with the biggest guns or the fastest ships. It was the one who had something worth fighting for. The Kythera fought because it was their nature. Humans fought because they chose to. The docking bay shuddered as the wandering star's damaged hull scraped against the station's airlock. Captain Morrison stumbled out of his ship, his face pale and drawn from 6 days of running on stimulants and pure adrenaline. He was younger than Chen had expected, maybe 23, with the kind of stubborn jawline that suggested he'd inherited more than just his ship from whoever had raised him. "Ma'am, I can't thank you enough," he said, gripping Chen's hand with both of his own. "But you need to understand, these aren't ordinary Kythera. I've been monitoring their communications. This is Hunting Pack Zethkar, led by War Hunter Thaklon. They've been chasing targets for over 40 years without a single loss. They don't just kill you. They make an example." Chen studied the young captain's face, seeing the exhaustion and fear there, but also something else, determination, the same look she'd seen in the mirror every morning since taking command of this station. "What's so important about your cargo that you've been running for 6 days?" she asked. Morrison gestured toward his ship. 17,000 units of synthesized antibiotics and antiviral compounds. There's a plague outbreak in the Proxima system. Without these medicines, about 200,000 colonists are going to die. He laughed bitterly. Funny thing is, the Kythera probably don't even know what I'm carrying. They started chasing me because I accidentally crossed through their territorial space. Now it's just a matter of pride. Across the station's intercom, Torres's voice crackled with tension. "Commander, the Kythera fleet has dropped to sublight. They're requesting communication." Chen nodded to Morrison. "Get some rest, Captain. We'll handle this." As she made her way back to the bridge, Chen's mind raced through tactical possibilities. The station's defenses were minimal. 6 automated point defense turrets designed to shoot down incoming meteorites, a handful of mining charges that could be repurposed as explosives, and 43 people who were about to face the most relentless hunters in known space. The main screen flickered to life as the Kythera transmission came through. War Hunter Thaklon appeared on screen, his chitinous black carapace gleaming under the harsh lights of his command bridge. The Kythera were insectoid in appearance, standing nearly 8 feet tall with forearms that ended in razor-sharp claws. But it was their eyes that truly unsettled humans. Compound orbs that seemed to catalog every detail, every weakness, every possible avenue of escape. "Human station." Thaklon's voice buzzed through the universal translator, each word clipped and precise. "You harbor prey that belongs to Hunting Pack Zethkar. Surrender the vessel Wandering Star and its pilot. You have 1 standard time unit to comply." Chen stepped forward, her hands clasped behind her back in a posture of military confidence she didn't entirely feel. "War Hunter Thaklon, I am Commander Sarah Chen of Mining Station Kepler 442b. The ship and its captain have requested asylum under Article 7 of the Stellar Accords. We cannot comply with your demand. The war hunter's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. The stellar accords are irrelevant. The hunt has been declared. The prey will be taken. Not today, Chen replied firmly. For a moment, the two commanders stared at each other across the void. Chen could see her own reflection in Thaklon's compound eyes. A small human woman standing defiant against a creature bred for war. She wondered what he saw when he looked at her. You do not understand, human. My pack has pursued targets across 17 star systems. We have hunted through the gravitational fields of binary pulsars. We have chased prey into the corona of active stars. We do not stop. We do not retreat. We do not fail, Chen smiled coldly. Then you've never hunted humans before. The transmission cut out, and within seconds the tactical display lit up with incoming contacts. All 12 Kythera destroyers were moving toward the station, their weapon systems powering up. All hands to battle stations, Chen announced. Seal all compartments. Route emergency power to shields and weapons. The next few minutes passed in a blur of activity. The crew moved with the practiced efficiency of people who had drilled for this moment, but never believed it would actually come. Mining charges were loaded into the station's single torpedo tube. The point defense systems came online with a high-pitched whine. Emergency blast doors sealed shut throughout the station. Torres looked up from his console. Ma'am, I'm reading massive power signatures from the Kythera ships. They're not just targeting our weapon systems. They're going to try to disable us completely. Chen nodded. The Kythera way was to capture their prey alive when possible. It made the hunt more satisfying, and it allowed them to study their quarry's strengths and weaknesses for future encounters. Lieutenant Park, I need you to monitor their formation patterns. The Kythera are methodical, but that means they're also predictable. Look for any gaps in their coverage. Ma'am, Park called out, his voice tight with concentration. They're spreading into a three-dimensional net, classic encirclement pattern. No gaps that I can see. Through the view screen, Chen could see the Kythera destroyers moving into position with mechanical precision. Each ship took its assigned place in the formation, creating an inescapable cage around the mining station. It was beautiful in its own terrible way, like watching a spider weave its web. The first volley came without warning. 12 precise energy beams struck the station's shield simultaneously, causing the entire structure to shudder. Emergency lighting flickered as power fluctuations rippled through the system. Shields down to 60%, Torres reported. Chen gripped her command chair as another volley hammered their defenses. The Kythera weren't trying to destroy them quickly. They were wearing them down systematically, like predators exhausting their prey. Before moving in for the kill, return fire, she ordered. The station's point defense turrets swiveled toward the nearest Kythera destroyer and opened fire with streams of high-velocity projectiles. The rounds sparked harmlessly off the alien ship's shields, but Chen felt a grim satisfaction at seeing the energy barriers flicker under the impact. At least we can hurt them, she muttered. Morrison appeared on the bridge, having ignored her order to rest. Commander, my ship still has some fight left in her. If you can create a distraction, I might be able to make a run for it. Chen shook her head. Captain, if you leave now, they'll just chase you again. And next time there won't be a mining station to help you. Then what do you suggest? Chen stared at the tactical display, watching the Kythera ships maintain their perfect formation. 12 destroyers against a mining station and a damaged corvette. By any reasonable calculation, this was hopeless. But as another volley struck their shields, Chen found herself thinking about her grandfather again. He'd told her about a battle where his unit had been surrounded by enemy forces, outnumbered 10-1, cut off from reinforcements with no hope of escape. The enemy commander had offered surrender terms, promising to treat prisoners according to the conventions of war. Her grandfather had politely declined and then spent the next 18 hours proving that humans were far more dangerous. When they had nothing left to lose, Mr. Torres, open a channel to all Kythera vessels, ma'am. Do it. The screen filled with War Hunter Thaklon's imposing figure once again. This time, his mandibles were spread in what Chen recognized as an expression of satisfaction. The hunt was proceeding exactly as expected. Human commander, your shields are failing. Surrender now, and your deaths will be swift. Chen stepped closer to the screen, her eyes locked on the War Hunter's compound orbs. Thaklon, I want you to remember this moment, because you're about to learn something important about humans. We don't just fight to win, sometimes we fight to teach. The mining charges detonated in perfect sequence, each explosion calculated to create maximum disruption in the Kythera formation. Chen had ordered the charges launched not at the enemy ships but at the asteroid itself, targeting the weakest points in the rocky mass that their miners had been studying for months. Chunks of iron and nickel ore erupted from the asteroid's surface, creating an expanding cloud of debris that scattered across the battlefield. The Kythera destroyers, caught off guard by the unconventional tactic, found their sensors suddenly clouded by thousands of metallic fragments. "Now," Chen shouted. The station's point defense turret swiveled toward the debris cloud and opened fire, not at the enemy ships, but at the larger chunks of ore. Each impact sent smaller fragments spinning off in new directions, creating an ever-expanding maze of obstacles. War Hunter Thaklan's image flickered back onto the screen, his compound eyes reflecting what might have been confusion. "Human Commander, this tactic serves no purpose. You have merely delayed the inevitable." Chen smiled as she watched the tactical display. The Kythera ships were already adapting, their formation shifting to account for the debris field. But adaptation took time, and time was exactly what she needed. "Torres, patch me through to Captain Morrison." Morrison's voice crackled through the comm system from the docking bay. "Ma'am, my ship's ready to launch, but I can't see a clear path through that formation." "You won't need one, Captain. Trust me." Chen turned to her weapons officer, a grizzled former military engineer named Kowalski. "How many more mining charges do we have?" 16, ma'am. But if we keep blowing up our own asteroid, we won't have a station much longer." "That's the idea. Kowalski, I need you to rig those charges with proximity detonators. Set them for delayed activation, 15-minute timer." The man's eyes widened. "Ma'am, if you're planning what I think you're planning, just do it." While Kowalski worked frantically in the weapons bay, Chen watched the Kythera destroyers methodically clearing paths through the debris field. Their formation was already tightening again, preparing for the final assault. She could see their weapon systems charging for another coordinated strike. "Lieutenant Park, I need a full structural analysis of this asteroid. Where are the critical stress points?" Park's fingers flew over his console. "Ma'am, the asteroid's core is already compromised from 3 years of mining operations. If we destabilize the primary support struts, the whole thing could come apart." "Perfect. Torres, send the following message to all Kythera vessels. War Hunter Thaklan, you claim that your pack has never failed a hunt. Let me ask you something. Have you ever hunted prey that was willing to take you with them?" On the screen, Thaklan's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of agitation. "Your threats are meaningless, human. We are prepared for your death. Are you prepared for your own?" Chen turned to her crew, seeing the understanding dawn in their eyes. They knew what she was asking of them, and not one of them stepped away from their posts. "Ma'am," Torres said quietly, "if we do this, we won't be able to evacuate in time." "I know." Chen's voice was steady. "But 200,000 people in the Proxima system won't die from plague. And the next time the Kythera encounter humans, they'll remember that we don't surrender, we don't run, and we sure as hell don't go quietly." Captain Morrison's voice came through the comm, tight with emotion. "Commander, I can't let you do this." "Those medicines aren't worth your lives. Son, those medicines are worth exactly what we're willing to pay for them. And as for our lives..." Chen looked around at her crew, these miners and engineers who had become warriors in the space of an hour. "We're already dead the moment we let those destroyers take this station. At least this way, we get to choose how we go." The next Kythera volley struck their shields with devastating force. Warning lights flashed across the bridge as power systems overloaded. Through the view screen, Chen could see the nearest destroyer moving closer, its boarding tubes extending like mechanical tentacles. "Kowalski, report. Charges are rigged and ready, Commander. One word from you, and this whole asteroid becomes the galaxy's biggest fragmentation grenade." Chen nodded, then activated the station-wide comm. "All hands, this is the Commander. In 60 seconds, we're going to show the Kythera something they've never seen before. Humans who choose death over surrender. It's been an honor serving with you." War Hunter Thaklan appeared on screen again, his voice carrying a note of genuine puzzlement. "Human Commander, your tactical position is hopeless. Surrender serves the same purpose as destruction, but allows your people to live. You still don't get it, do you?" Chen laughed, the sound harsh in the recycled air of the bridge. "This isn't about tactics or survival. This is about sending a message. Every species in this galaxy knows that the Kythera are relentless hunters. But after today, they'll also know that humans are something else entirely. She paused, watching the war hunter's compound eyes reflect the emergency lighting from the bridge. We're teachers. Chen raised her hand toward the detonation controls. Around her, the crew stood at their stations, ready to face whatever came next. Through the view screen, she could see the Kythera destroyers moving in for the kill. Their formation perfect, their purpose clear. But in the docking bay, Captain Morrison was preparing to launch with 17,000 units of medical supplies that would save countless lives. And somewhere in the galaxy, other humans would hear about what happened here today. They would remember that 43 people on a mining station chose to fight 12 Kythera destroyers rather than surrender a single ship. "Commander," Torres said softly. "Proximity alarms. They're preparing to board." Chen's hand hovered over the detonation switch. Through the tactical display, she could see the Kythera destroyers closing in from all sides, their boarding tubes extending like the legs of some mechanical spider. In a few moments, Kythera warriors would be cutting through their hull, their razor-sharp claws ready to tear apart anyone who resisted. But Chen found herself thinking about her daughter again, safe in her university classroom, studying to become a teacher herself. She wondered what lessons her daughter would learn from the news reports about what happened here today. "Torres, send one final message to the Kythera fleet. Ma'am, tell them that if they want this station, they're welcome to it. All of it." Chen's finger moved toward the detonation control, but before she could press it, something unexpected happened. Ensign Park's voice cut through the tension on the bridge. "Commander, wait. I'm reading something strange on the long-range sensors. Multiple contacts bearing 047 Mark 12. Ma'am, they're human ships. Lots of them." Chen froze, her hand still poised over the detonation switch. "How many is lots of them, Ensign?" Park's voice cracked with disbelief. 27 ships, ma'am. Looks like a mixed fleet. Destroyers, cruisers, and at least 3 battleships. They're coming in fast and broadcasting emergency frequencies." Through the view screen, Chen could see the Kythera formation beginning to shift. Their attention divided between the station they were preparing to board and the new threat approaching from the outer system. War Hunter Thaklan's image flickered back onto the screen, his mandibles clicking with what might have been confusion or anger. "Human commander, explain the presence of these additional vessels." Chen stared at the tactical display, watching those 27 friendly contacts racing toward their position. She had no idea where they had come from or why they were here, but she knew one thing with absolute certainty. The Kythera were about to learn a very different lesson about humanity than the one she had been prepared to teach. The lead battleship of the approaching human fleet was magnificent in its deadly simplicity. The UES Indomitable stretched nearly 2 kilometers from bow to stern, its hull scarred by countless battles, but still radiating the kind of power that made even veteran warriors pause. As it closed to weapons range, its massive gun turrets swiveled toward the Kythera formation with mechanical precision. "This is Admiral Marcus Webb of the 3rd Human Fleet," came the transmission, the voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed. "All Kythera vessels are ordered to withdraw immediately from this system. You have 30 seconds to comply." Chen stared at the tactical display in disbelief. The 3rd Fleet was supposed to be stationed in the Centauri system, nearly 40 light-years away. There was no way they could have reached this position so quickly, even if they had somehow known about the situation. War Hunter Thaklan's compound eyes reflected the growing light signatures of the approaching human ships. For the first time since the encounter began, Chen detected something in his posture that might have been uncertainty. "Admiral Webb," Thaklan's voice buzzed through the translator, "Hunting Pack Zethkar operates under ancient territorial rights. These humans are harboring prey that belongs to us." "Ancient territorial rights?" Admiral Webb's laugh was cold as vacuum. "War Hunter, let me explain something about human territorial rights. When you threaten our people, you enter our territory. When you pursue our ships, you become our prey. And when you corner our civilians..." The transmission paused as weapons locks activated across the human fleet. "You become our problem to solve." Chen watched in fascination as the Kythera formation began to shift. For 40 years, Hunting Pack Zethkar had been the pursuers, the relentless predators that struck fear into the hearts of their enemies. Now suddenly they found themselves outnumbered more than 2 to 1 by a species they had always dismissed as soft and weak. "Torres, how did the 3rd Fleet know we were here?" Chen asked quietly. Her communications officer was bent over his console, his face pale with concentration. Ma'am, I'm reading automated distress beacons from Captain Morrison's ship. They've been broadcasting continuously for the past 6 days. The signal was picked up by a civilian merchant vessel 2 systems over, who relayed it to military command. Morrison's voice crackled through the comm from the docking bay. I'm sorry, Commander. Standard emergency protocol requires the beacon to activate automatically during extended pursuit. I should have warned you. Chen found herself smiling despite the situation. Captain, don't apologize for calling in the cavalry. On the main screen, War Hunter Thacklon was conferring with his subordinates. Chen could see other Cathara officers on the bridge of his command ship, their mandibles clicking in rapid conversation. The Kithara were not cowards, but they were also not stupid. They understood odds as well as any predator. Admiral Webb's voice filled the bridge again. Commander Chen, this is Admiral Webb. We've been monitoring your communications. I have to say I'm impressed by your crew's performance under pressure. Thank you, Admiral. We were prepared to make our final stand when you arrived. So I gathered. War Hunter Thacklon, you have 15 seconds to begin withdrawal procedures. The Cathara commander's image filled the screen once more, his compound eyes reflecting the lights of 27 human warships now spread in perfect attack formation around his force. For a moment, Chen thought he might actually choose to fight, even against such overwhelming odds. Admiral Webb, Thacklon said finally, Hunting Pack Zethkar acknowledges the presence of your fleet. However, the prey ship carries cargo that may contain biological weapons. We cannot allow it to reach the Proxima colonies without inspection. Chen felt her temper flare. That's a lie, and you know it. Captain Morrison is carrying medical supplies to treat a plague outbreak. But Admiral Webb's voice remained calm and professional. War Hunter, if you're concerned about biological contamination, I'm sure we can arrange for neutral inspection of the cargo. The Galactic Health Organization maintains a facility in the Vega system. Unacceptable. The prey must be examined by Cathara specialists. Then we have a problem. The tension on the bridge was thick enough to cut with a knife. Chen could see her crew glancing between their stations and the tactical display, watching as both fleets maneuvered for optimal firing positions. 27 human ships against 12 Kithara destroyers. The humans had overwhelming numerical superiority, but the Cathara had built their ships for exactly this kind of last stand. Lieutenant Park looked up from his sensor station. Ma'am, I'm reading massive power buildups from all Cathara vessels. They're charging their primary weapons. Chen's hand moved instinctively toward the detonation controls for the mining charges. If this turned into a shooting war, the station would be caught in the crossfire. Better to take out as many enemies as possible before they could target the human fleet. But before anyone could fire the first shot, something unexpected happened. Captain Morrison's voice came through the comm system, not just to the mining station, but broadcast on all frequencies. This is Captain Alex Morrison of the independent trader Wandering Star. I'm transmitting the complete manifest of my cargo bay to all vessels, Kithara and human alike. The data stream appeared on every screen simultaneously. 17,000 units of synthesized antibiotics, antiviral compounds and immune system boosters, medical supplies manufactured on Earth and certified by the Interstellar Pharmaceutical Council. Nothing that could possibly be considered a biological weapon. War Hunter Thacklon, Morrison continued, his young voice carrying across the void. My ship's computer logs show that your pack began pursuit when I accidentally crossed the boundary of your territorial space 6 days ago. I was carrying these same medical supplies then. You've had 6 days to scan my cargo and determine that it poses no biological threat to anyone. The silence that followed was deafening. Chen could see Thacklon's compound eyes reflecting the data scrolling across his screens, the incontrovertible evidence that his justification for continuing the hunt was completely false. Furthermore, Morrison added, I'm transmitting communication logs from the Proxima colonies, showing the current death toll from the plague outbreak. As of this morning, over 15,000 people have died. Every hour I'm delayed here means more deaths. Admiral Webb's voice cut through the tension like a laser. War Hunter, it appears your hunt has no legal or practical justification. I'm ordering you one final time to withdraw your forces. Chen watched Thacklon's image on the screen, studying the alien's body language. The Kithara War Hunter stood perfectly still, his forearms held at his sides, his compound eyes fixed on something beyond the camera's range. When he finally spoke, his voice carried a note she had never heard before in Kithara communications. Admiral Webb, Commander Chen, Captain Morrison, he said slowly, Hunting Pack Zethkar has pursued prey across 17 star systems without fail. We have never withdrawn from a declared hunt. We have never allowed prey to escape once we have locked onto their trail. Chen felt her heart sink. The Cathera were going to fight even knowing they would lose. Their pride simply wouldn't allow them to back down. But Thackalon wasn't finished speaking. However, he continued, we have also never encountered prey that was willing to sacrifice themselves to protect others. Commander Chen, when you chose to face destruction rather than surrender, Captain Morrison, you demonstrated something we have never seen before. The war hunter paused, his mandibles clicking softly. You have shown us that sometimes the hunt is less important than what the prey is hunting for. Chen stared at the screen in shock. Around her, the bridge crew exchanged glances of disbelief. Even Admiral Webb seemed momentarily speechless. Hunting Pack Zethkar will withdraw, Thackalon announced. Captain Morrison, you may proceed to the Proxima colonies with your cargo. We will not pursue. As Chen watched the 12 Cathera destroyers begin to change course, moving away from the mining station and the human fleet, she found herself thinking about her grandfather again. He had told her that the most dangerous enemy was the one with something worth fighting for. But perhaps the most dangerous enemy of all was the one who could recognize that same quality in others. 3 days later, Chen stood in her private quarters, staring out at the stars through the reinforced viewport. The mining station had returned to its normal routine, the crew working to repair the damage from the battle, while the automated systems continued their slow extraction of ore from the asteroid's core. But everything felt different now, as if the encounter with Hunting Pack Zethkar had fundamentally altered the way she saw the universe. A soft chime indicated an incoming transmission. Chen moved to her desk and activated the communication console, expecting to see Admiral Webb or perhaps one of her department heads. Instead, the screen filled with the familiar compound eyes of War Hunter Thackalon. Commander Chen, the Cathera's voice buzzed through the translator. I hope I am not intruding. Chen settled into her chair, studying the alien's posture. Something had changed in Thackalon's bearing since their confrontation. The rigid military precision was still there, but underneath it she detected something that might have been curiosity. Not at all, War Hunter. I have to admit I'm surprised to hear from you. As am I surprised to be making this communication, Thackalon replied, his mandibles clicking softly. In 40 years of hunting, I have never contacted prey after the conclusion of a hunt. But then I have never encountered prey quite like you. Chen leaned back in her chair. We're not your prey anymore, War Hunter. The hunt is over, is it? Thackalon tilted his head, a gesture that looked oddly human despite his alien features. Commander, I have been studying the records of our encounter. Your species fascinates me. When faced with certain death, you chose to fight not for victory but for principle. This is unprecedented. Maybe among the species you've hunted before, Chen replied, but it's pretty standard behavior for humans. That is precisely what troubles me. Thackalon's compound eyes seemed to focus more intently on her. Commander, in your species' military history, how many last stands can you recall? How many times have humans chosen death over surrender? Chen thought for a moment. Hundreds. Thousands, maybe. The Battle of Thermopylae, the Alamo, Stalingrad, the defense of New Geneva during the colonial wars. It's not exactly rare behavior for us. And how many of those last stands ultimately achieved their strategic objectives? The question caught Chen off guard. She found herself really thinking about it, considering not just the heroic sacrifices but their long-term consequences. Most of them, actually. Even when the defenders died, their sacrifice usually inspired others to continue the fight. Thackalon's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of agitation. Commander, do you understand what you have just told me? Your species routinely produces individuals willing to die for abstract concepts like honor, duty, or the protection of others, and these sacrifices frequently succeed in achieving their goals. What's your point, War Hunter? My point is that the Cathera have built our entire civilization around the concept of relentless pursuit. We are the hunters and all other species are prey, but you have shown me something that challenges that fundamental assumption. Thackalon paused, his forearms shifting restlessly. You have shown me that some prey is more dangerous when cornered than when running. Chen began to understand where this conversation was leading. You're questioning your own nature. I am questioning whether our nature serves us as well as we believed. Thaklon's image flickered slightly as he adjusted his communication equipment. Commander, after our encounter, I began researching human military doctrine. What I discovered disturbs me greatly, such as, your species does not simply fight to win battles. You fight to win wars, and when you cannot win wars, you fight to shape the peace that follows. You play a longer game than any species we have encountered. Thaklon's voice carried a note of what might have been respect. The Kithera focus on the hunt itself. Humans focus on what comes after the hunt. Chen found herself smiling. That's probably the nicest thing anyone's ever said about human strategic thinking. It was not intended as a compliment. But there was something in Thaklon's tone that suggested he didn't entirely mean that. Commander, I must ask you something, and I require an honest answer. Go ahead. When you prepared to detonate your mining charges, when you were ready to destroy your entire station rather than surrender Captain Morrison, were you thinking about the immediate tactical situation, or were you considering the broader implications of your actions? Chen considered the question carefully. Both, I suppose. In the immediate sense, I was trying to take as many of your ships with us as possible. But in the longer term, she paused, remembering her thoughts in those final moments. I was thinking about what other humans would learn from our example. I was thinking about my daughter, and what kind of universe I wanted to leave for her. You were teaching. Yes. I suppose I was. Thaklon was silent for several moments, his compound eyes reflecting the lights of his command bridge. When he finally spoke, his voice was quieter than before. Commander, the Kithera are an ancient species. We have hunted among the stars for over 2 million years. In all that time, we have never encountered prey that sought to teach us lessons about ourselves. His mandibles clicked softly. It is unsettling. Maybe that's not a bad thing, Chen suggested. Maybe it's time for the Kithera to learn something new. Perhaps. But if we are to learn, we must have teachers. And if humans are to be our teachers... Thaklon paused, his forearms gesturing in what might have been a shrug. Then perhaps the relationship between hunter and prey is more complex than we believed. Chen felt a chill run down her spine as she began to understand the full implications of what Thaklon was saying. War Hunter, are you suggesting what I think you're suggesting? I am suggesting that hunting pack Zethkar has spent 40 years pursuing prey that runs away. Perhaps it is time we pursued prey that turns to fight. Thaklon's compound eyes seemed to gleam. Commander, would you be willing to accept a very unusual proposal? I'm listening. The Kithera High Council has been intrigued by reports of our encounter. They wish to study human tactical doctrine more closely. Specifically, they wish to understand how a species that appears so fragile can consistently defeat opponents that should, by all logical analysis, be superior. Chen leaned forward. And they have authorized me to extend an invitation. Would you and a small contingent of your people be willing to visit our homeworld as honored guests? You would be there to teach us about human military philosophy, strategy, and most importantly, your peculiar relationship with defeat. Our relationship with defeat? Commander, in the past 72 hours, I have studied 17 historical human battles where your forces were outnumbered, outgunned, and facing certain destruction. In 14 of those battles, the humans achieved their strategic objectives despite suffering tactical defeat. Thaklon's voice carried a note of genuine puzzlement. How do you turn loss into victory so consistently? Chen thought about Captain Morrison, safely on his way to the Proxima colonies with his life-saving cargo. She thought about the 43 crew members who had been willing to die rather than surrender. She thought about Admiral Webb and the 27 ships that had raced across space to help strangers they had never met. Maybe that's because we don't see it as loss, she said finally. Maybe we see it as investment. Thaklon's mandibles clicked rapidly. Explain. When humans make a last stand, we're not just fighting for the immediate tactical situation. We're fighting for the people who will come after us. We're investing our lives in a future we may never see. Chen smiled. The real victory isn't surviving the battle. The real victory is making sure the battle means something. For a long moment, the two commanders stared at each other across the void, predator and prey, hunter and teacher, trying to understand the complex relationship that had emerged between their species. Commander Chen, Thaklon said finally, I believe the Kithera have much to learn from humanity. But I also believe that humanity may have much to learn from us, such as persistence, focus, the ability to pursue a goal across vast distances and time spans without wavering. Thaklan's compound eyes seemed to focus more intently. Perhaps working together, we could create something neither species could achieve alone. Chen found herself thinking about her grandfather again, the soldier who had faced impossible odds and chosen to fight anyway. He had told her that the most dangerous enemy was the one with something worth fighting for. But maybe the most valuable ally was the one who could teach you to fight for something even greater than yourself. 6 months later, Chen stood on the observation deck of the Kithara homeworld's orbital station, watching the ancient planet turn slowly beneath her feet. The world was beautiful in an alien way, its continents covered in crystalline formations that caught and reflected the light of its twin suns. It was hard to believe that this serene world had produced the galaxy's most feared hunters. "The irony is not lost on us," said a familiar voice behind her. Chen turned to see war hunter Thaklan approaching, his movements more relaxed than she remembered from their first encounter. Over the past months, as she and her small team of military advisors had worked with the Kithara High Council, she had learned to read the subtle signs of emotion in their alien features. "What irony is that?" she asked. "That a species evolved for hunting should live on a world so peaceful." Thaklan joined her at the viewport, his compound eyes reflecting the planet's surface. "Perhaps that is why we became so obsessed with the pursuit itself. Our world gave us no worthy prey, so we took to the stars to find it." Chen nodded, thinking about the reports she had been writing for Admiral Webb and the Human Defense Council. The Kithara were far more complex than anyone had realized. Their relentless pursuit behavior wasn't just aggression, it was a deeply ingrained cultural response to the existential boredom of being apex predators on a world with no other apex. "Predators, how are the integration exercises going?" she asked. Thaklan's mandibles clicked, and what she had learned was the Kithara equivalent of a smile. "Better than expected. Young Hunter Veltar has been particularly receptive to human tactical concepts. Yesterday, during the simulation, her pack successfully defended a mining facility against superior forces by using what she called investment strategy." Investment strategy? She chose to sacrifice her most powerful unit to buy time for reinforcements, accepting tactical loss to achieve strategic victory. "Very human thinking." Thaklan paused. "Also very effective." Through the viewport, Chen could see a wing of Kithara fighters executing formation maneuvers with a squadron of human vessels. The alien ships moved with their characteristic mechanical precision, but now that precision was being guided by human concepts of flexible response and adaptive tactics. "And how are our people adapting to Kithara methods?" Chen asked. "Captain Rodriguez reports that his crew has improved their long-range tracking capabilities by 300% since implementing Kithara persistence protocols." Thaklan replied. "He also says that the human tendency to give up when a situation appears hopeless has been significantly reduced." Chen smiled. "I'll bet it has." The past 6 months had been a revelation for both species. The humans had learned that their tendency to make heroic sacrifices while inspiring was sometimes premature. The Kithara concept of relentless persistence could be applied to more than just hunting. It could be used to pursue diplomatic solutions, to maintain long-term research projects, to build relationships that spanned decades instead of years. Meanwhile, the Kithara had discovered that human adaptability and willingness to sacrifice for abstract principles could transform their hunting techniques into something far more sophisticated. Instead of simply pursuing prey until it collapsed, they could pursue goals that benefited entire civilizations. "There's something I need to tell you," Chen said, turning away from the viewport. "Yes? I received word this morning from the Proxima colonies. The plague outbreak has been completely contained. Captain Morrison's medical supplies arrived in time to save over 150,000 lives." Thaklan was silent for a moment. "And now those lives will go on to produce more lives who will in turn contribute to their civilization's growth and development." "Exactly. One cargo ship carrying medical supplies, pursued by 12 of the galaxy's most dangerous hunters, defended by 43 miners who were willing to die for strangers." Chen looked out at the paired suns of the Kithara system. "Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if we hadn't decided to help Morrison. The plague would have killed those 150,000 people. Thacklon said matter-of-factly. Their deaths would have crippled the Proxima colony's development for generations. The economic impact would have destabilized the entire sector, and the Cathara would have maintained their reputation as unstoppable hunters. Yes, we would have continued believing that the hunt itself was the ultimate purpose. Thacklon's forearms gestured toward the mixed squadron of ships visible through the viewport. Instead, we learned that the hunt is merely a tool. The question is what you choose to hunt for. Chen's communicator chimed with an incoming message. She glanced at the display and felt her heart rate increase. Thacklon, I need to call an emergency meeting with the High Council. What has happened? Long-range sensors have detected a Vaktar invasion fleet moving toward the Tau Ceti system. 300 ships heading straight for a human colony world with minimal defenses. Thacklon's compound eyes reflected the urgency in her voice. The Vaktar were a species that made the Cathara look peaceful by comparison. They didn't hunt for sport or territorial dominance, they hunted for resources, stripping entire worlds bare before moving on to the next target. How long before they reached Tau Ceti? Thacklon asked. 18 days. And how many human ships can be assembled to defend the colony? Chen's smile was grim. Maybe 50 if we're lucky. The Defense Council is already calling it a lost cause. Thacklon's mandibles clicked rapidly as he processed the tactical situation. 300 Vaktar ships against 50 human defenders. By any reasonable calculation, the colony was doomed. But Chen could see something changing in the war hunter's posture, a familiar tension that she had first witnessed during their confrontation at the mining station. Commander, Thacklon said slowly, how many Cathara hunting packs are currently within range of the Tau Ceti system? Chen felt a surge of hope. I don't know. Why? Because I believe it is time for the Cathara to hunt something other than prey. Thacklon turned away from the viewport, his movements sharp with purpose. It is time for us to hunt predators. 30 minutes later, Chen stood in the circular chamber of the Cathara High Council, watching as the most senior war hunters in their civilization debated the most radical proposal in their species' history. The chamber walls were lined with trophies from thousands of successful hunts, each one representing a victory achieved through relentless pursuit. War hunter Thacklon, spoke Elder Matriarch HFY, her ancient carapace scarred by centuries of battle. You ask us to abandon our territories to defend a human colony. This is contrary to every instinct we possess. With respect, Elder, I ask us to expand our definition of the hunt. Thacklon replied. For 2 million years we have hunted for dominance, for territory, for the glory of the chase. But Commander Chen has shown us that there are other things worth pursuing, such as, Chen stepped forward, justice, Matriarch, protection of the innocent, the preservation of civilization itself. Another elder, war hunter Krexnoth, gestured dismissively with all 4 arms. These are human concepts. They have no meaning for the Cathara, don't they? Chen activated the holographic display at the center of the chamber, showing the tactical situation at Tau Ceti. 300 Vaktar ships, heading for a world where 2 million humans live in peace. Farmers, teachers, children. People who have never raised a weapon against anyone. She paused, watching the elders study the display. The Vaktar will strip that world bare, taking everything of value and leaving the population to starve. They will move on to the next world, and the next, consuming everything in their path. Chen looked around the chamber. War hunters, I ask you, what prey is more worthy of your pursuit than predators who hunt the defenseless? Elder Matriarch HFY raised one clawed hand. Commander Chen, even if we accepted this philosophical argument, the tactical situation remains unchanged. 300 ships against whatever force we could assemble. The odds are not favorable. Thacklon's compound eyes gleamed. Elder, when have the Cathara ever been concerned with favorable odds? We hunt through gravity storms and solar flares. We pursue prey into the hearts of nebulae and the coronas of dying stars. Difficult hunts are the only hunts worth undertaking. But this would not be a hunt in the traditional sense, Elder Krexnoth pointed out. This would be warfare. Open battle between fleets. Yes, Chen said quietly. It would be war, but it would be war for something greater than territory or dominance. It would be war for the principle that some things are worth protecting, regardless of the cost. The chamber fell silent as the elders considered her words. Chen could see them weighing the proposal against millions of years of evolutionary instinct. struggling to reconcile their nature as hunters with this new concept of hunting for justice. Finally, Elder Matriarch Jekval spoke. War Hunter Thaklon, if the High Council were to approve this action, how many hunting packs could be assembled? 17 packs, Elder. 204 ships, including my own pack. And you believe this force, combined with human defenders, could successfully engage 300 Vaktar vessels? Thaklon's mandibles clicked slowly. Elder, I believe that humans and Kithara fighting together for a cause they both believe in could engage any force in the galaxy.